You're listening to Articulate with your hosts, Kevin Kramer and Sean Gillespie, your go-to guys for art tips, techniques, and general artist ramblings. Presented by drawingandcoloring.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Articulate. I am Kevin Kramer.
Sean Gillespie.
Haven't done intros in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I know. I don't know why. We forget to do that sometimes. We get so excited to talk about our topics.
Jump in it.
We want to go. We want to go. So what's our topic today? Because I want to go.
Our topic today is source material.
What is source material, Kevin?
Well, source material is anything that you use as a source
for drawing.
For your art.
Or painting.
Or art.
Or photography.
Or art.
But where do you get source material? That's going to be the question that we're really going to be focusing on.
Yes.
But first,
because there are
give you a little history here.
Lots of different places to get it.
Yeah. So, interesting fact.
Facts are great.
Is during the Renaissance, and maybe even a little bit before, but definitely during the Renaissance, artists would have apprentices and, and assistants, and you would, if you wanted your kid to be a successful artist, you would apprentice him to a master artist.
Some kind of weird guy.
Yeah, some kind of creepy
studio.
dude. You're like, here, raise my child to be an artist, and we hope you're safe. But anyway, that happened a lot.
I'm sure it did.
I'm sure it was bad sometimes, and sometimes good. Anyway. We're not getting off on that subject.
That's
another podcast.
It really is.
But what would the master artist would do is he had a sketchbook that he created, and they would keep these sketchbooks years and years and years, and he would have all of these sketches, and he would give them to his apprentice. That was part of the apprenticeship, is that he had access to the master sketchbooks collection, and so he would give it to him, and the apprentice would have to create his own sketchbook based on the master sketchbook. So it was this building of sketches and source material, which is the subject of this podcast. And interesting thing is they would, you'd have live models and you'd draw from them and things like that. But when they were dealing with fabric and things, I found this interesting. They would dip fabric into plaster so that it would harden, and then they would have these draperies of hardened fabric that they would draw over and over again, and that they could piece and do it. So you would have like a section of your sketchbook might just be fabrics that you've drawn and collected in really high detail. And in fact, like Michelangelo, for example, had a lot of these type of fabrics in his sketchbooks, and he would piece those together with nude live models, because a lot of times they would draw only nude and then put the clothes on afterwards, because they thought that would give them a more accurate...
So they would actually make 3D plaster models and then draw that in the sketchbooks?
Well, it would be more like just a draped cloth or something like that, just to see how the folds would do over. So it was like a piece of fabric, and then they would piece it all together in kind of a
so you could like take that way and put it out in the sunlight and still draw it.
Right. Yeah, and get the shadowing and get different things like that. But what's interesting is what they were doing was they had all these little sketches, and they would create these piecemeal images. So we need somebody holding a rose. Well, I've got this guy who was holding a beer, so we'll make him holding a rose now. But it's the same sketch.
Right.
Which is kind of like today. Jump to 2013. Whoop. Using the internet as source material. See my lead in there?
Yeah, that was a good one.
It's a lot of build up, but I feel like so nowadays, in a way, the internet is our sketchbook. You want to find somebody holding a rose, you type in somebody holding a rose, and boom, you got like 1 million pictures of somebody holding a rose. You Google it.
Google images.
You Google it.
Amazing.
You Google the images.
That's what I use.
Sometimes I do it a lot, and I piecemeal it together. I gotta say, though,
there are limitations on that.
Yeah, because you're limited, because then you have to use your imagination to fill in the holes, and you got to try to piece it together, and you have to imagine, well, what would the shadow look if it was like this?
You have to you have to know anatomy a little bit better.
A little bit, yeah. You got to fill in a lot of the blanks. Yeah. That's the downside.
You have to have experience with the specific thing that you might want to even draw at some point.
A lot of times. But then you're drawing what you know and not what you see, Kevin. Exactly. And that's dangerous.
That is dangerous.
That's dangerous, because your results are not going to be as good as if you're just being able to draw what you see.
Well, another thing with getting images from the internet is they are lit differently across all Like
Right.
if you take something that, like you said, like a rose or a beer can,
Right.
if you need to get a beer can, it's lit.
Beer cans and roses. That's all people draw.
That's all I draw.
That's all I draw.
I don't draw that at all.
But
But there
you-
was a drawing I did in high school, actually, that was pieced together with different photos of B.B. King.
right.
And once I actually got the composition down, when I actually started drawing it, and I didn't really have a lot of knowledge about lighting,
Right.
when I tried to fill in all the blacks and lighting,
It's hard
it
to
was
do.
like,
It's really hard to
well,
do.
that doesn't fit now.
Yeah, it's very hard to imagine light,
Yeah, I
light
did
shadow.
not
Because when you think
about it
about
at
it,
all.
like even right now, there's all these shadows at play and
like,
going
yeah.
across the fabric and my face in all these ways, and it's really hard to imagine exactly how that would be.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking at a photograph of it exactly like that.
Well, it's even having to know what kind of lighting.
Right.
If you know the lighting, it's still
Even then, it's almost
Still rough.
impossible to totally imagine it perfect. You can get it close.
right.
You know, it depends on, if you've got somebody outside and there are no shadows, then obviously that's going to be way easier
Right.
than, somebody who's,
But that's so some things to keep in mind when you're doing
right.
source material.
Also, with the internet, using drawings, old Shepherd Fairy might have a little warning for you there
Oh, yeah.
on copyright protection. Obviously,
Yeah.
copying an image. I believe there's a certain percentage that you can copy. I think it's like 30% of an image that you're
See, that brings up an interesting question I have, is because there are all these celebrities, and then you go on YouTube and all these other
Right.
places, there's all these people drawing the celebrities,
Right.
but you never see the source image in their drawings. If they're trying to teach you, they just show you
Right.
how to draw them, that they don't use the actual source image.
Yeah, well, that's because the source image a lot of times is copywritten, but celebrities are public domain because they're
Right.
considered famous, so you can use their
Tricky.
image. Yeah, there's a lot of
Tricky.
copyright. We're gonna have to do another podcast on copyright protection and things like that, media law.
Yeah. That's a
Communications
tough
law.
one.
Yeah, it is, but I got a book on it, so we're gonna be good. We're gonna
get
talk about it.
Get some interviews on it, too.
Yeah, and some interviews. We're gonna be talking about that later. But as far as just sketching, internet's not bad.
No.
But what's better, Kevin?
Well, I would say keep in mind lighting. Keep
Okay.
in mind copyright for internet.
Yeah, we'll keep in mind that for sure.
Those are two big things.
Those are biggins. Biggins.
And the other thing I use the most, well, not mostly, I use the internet. The
Yeah.
second thing would be books.
Books are, they're like
Yeah.
right there with the internet.
Yeah.
They're the internet before the internet.
Exactly. Books and photos.
Right. Books and photos. Photo books. Coffee table books. I've got a bunch of like Time Life books and things like that.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I do. As if I have a certain pose that I'm having trouble with or a certain thing that I need,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll put in a movie that's like that pose. Like I had to do a Trojan warrior or something the other day, and so I put in the old 300 and tried to find, just basically go through on the computer
Frame
until
by
you get
frame.
somebody holding a sword in exactly the way you want.
Yeah.
And then I've got that image, and of course you change it quite a
Yeah.
bit.
That's a really good way to learn motion and drapery and all of that.
You
too.
can really, and you're gonna, as far as like going to the internet or looking at a book, you've got millions of pictures in a single movie versus,
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I never even thought of that until.
I know, till just now.
And I went to your house and you had it all set
It's
up.
a
It's
pro
like,
tip. Pro tip.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
I never thought of it.
Yeah, it's you have to have DVDs.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've heard of these
I don't know what that
things.
is.
A lot of
I only
people
have
are
digital
moving
files.
on.
I only have digital files.
A lot of people are moving to the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's also a way to do it. But like
Yeah.
you say, books too.
Yeah.
Well, what's even better than that, Kevin, is something you and some other people do here.
Photographs?
That's it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Am
why
I
don't
looking
you tell
for?
us? That's the word. That's the magic
Yes,
word.
yes.
But photographs that you make.
Photographs that I make specifically.
For example?
That takes away the entire. Yeah, this guy right
there.
here.
This guy took a picture of me, and then he started drawing it.
That's right.
Can't see it yet. It's not done.
No, still need to work on that one.
But, you got me in the pose that you wanted. We did
Exactly.
several pictures.
I would say that though photographs have the most control if you're taking them.
Right.
Because you have most control over
yeah.
the setting, everything.
You're controlling the lighting. You're controlling the image you use.
Mm-hmm.
You're controlling the subject because it's somebody you picked. You're
Right.
controlling the costume they're wearing. You have
Exactly.
a lot of control.
And it's immediate.
Yeah.
Especially
and-
if you have just like a phone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
It's
so,
almost instant. And the quality of the pictures that you get with the phone now are better than anything I use for, like, that big Alex piece I drew that you can go see on my website. It's huge. I was taken with like a 6 megapixel camera, which is like a joke now.
Joke. People laugh at 6 megapixel cameras. They say your camera is puny.
Yes. The megapixels.
That's what they do. I've seen it happen.
I've never had
Kind of sad.
Maybe when it happens, I'll cry. But I've never
sad. So photos are a great way. There's actually a really large mural in Shreveport where the artist, that's exactly what she did, is she had them all, she had the people come in, she had to put them on costumes, pose in exactly the pose she wanted, pieced them all together in Photoshop, and then she basically digitized them and then made a color by number, and then cheated. No, I'm just kidding. But she, sorry.
One of my favorite artists, Alphonse Mucha, if you, in one of his books, if you go through any of his books, he is famous for Sandra Bernhardt and taking pictures of, and drawing all of her posters and all of that. If you go through any of his books, that's exactly what he does. And that's long ago.
Yeah.
You had to have like a photographer to take your pictures. And he would get the exact poses and use those as source material. He wouldn't just directly copy them, but he would just use those for poses. And you can see when he uses like the certain pictures, but he knows enough about anatomy to where he can just alter it to different things.
And that's an interesting point. In fact, ever since the camera has been invented,
it's not cheating.
Yeah. Well, a lot of artists have considered it cheating ever since it's been invented. You know, but ever since, like, one of the first things that it was used for, a lot of photographers made livings by creating source material for artists.
Yeah.
And it actually pretty much immediately opened up a porn trade as well, because they had these nude women posing for source material for artists, and then the
pinups.
The photographer would make a side business of selling those same pictures to lascivious men. So you would he had like double the income. You had legitimate artists as well as nudie, under the table nudie pictures, and so it's actually created a problem for artists, because then those pictures became outlawed and must be viewed as pornographic, and then it became harder for artists to get source material for photos. Big snowball of problems. But interesting.
Ethical.
Yeah.
Be ethical. That's all you got to worry about.
But it's interesting that as soon as the camera came around, artists were like, hey, this is going to be good for me.
Right.
Because that person is not sitting still, and I need...
It's immediate. You can just capture something that is just like a fleeting... Even like if you want to draw kids, impossible.
Even draw kids.
Dogs
kids can't sit still.
Pet portraits.
Yeah, those. Yeah, pets. Pets. That's a big one. Yeah. Kids and pets.
I know Norman Rockwell. He travel all around and take photos of everybody, and just because he couldn't.
Right. Couldn't go everywhere. And animals in general. You think about like zoos. I've got a painting that I'm working on now where have several animals that. Back in the day, before photography, I would have somebody based on descriptions. Like a lot of times you see lions and stuff, and they look really weird. Yeah. Well, that's because they're looking at other artists' drawings and descriptions.
There's a book I can't think of right now that is exactly that. It's
it's like, what? Lions don't look like that. But it's because they're like, oh, well, it was described to me, and this is what I imagined that it would be. And it's like, well, you can't really draw that. Don't do that.
Right.
That's a bad idea. Unless you want some trippy art.
Yeah.
But that actually, but that's actually brings us to another point, though, is drawing from other artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
do we know who did that, Kevin?
I think you know.
I know. All right. Well, Manet actually copied in the Luncheon in the Grass, which is the American
lunch.
Yeah, it's the Luncheon in the Grass is the English translation.
That actually is a pretty ridiculous sequence of photos that you showed.
Yeah, I mean he basically copied Raphael's, an engraving by Raphael, but it's a woman, sitting on the grass, looking, breaking the fourth wall, if you will.
Yes,
like looking at the artist or the viewer. And then two men sitting around him. Now, in Raphael's painting, the men were nude. But in Manet's painting, the men are clothed, but only the woman remains nude, which actually created a big scandal in the
probably for a reason.
In the Salon of 1863 or whatever year. I think it was 64, 63. Anyway, so then Picasso copied that painting from Manet. So you've got this artist copying artist where you can actually go through, and you have to look this up.
Yeah.
And you'll just see, type in Manet,
incredible.
Raphael, and Picasso lunching in the grass, and I'm sure that Google...
It'll probably bring up all three together.
It'll bring up the French name, and then you can copy and paste that. I'm not going to try to pronounce that because I will embarrass myself because I don't speak French, despite being from Louisiana.
I was going to say.
I know, which is a shame, but
it happens.
you know, it happens. But anyway, you got to look at it because
that progression is very...
Yeah.
But they, again, in their own unique way, they are different.
Right. And that's because they stole it. Yeah,
they stole the composition, basically.
Right. The difference between borrowing and stealing is, if you borrow, then you're just kind of taking it, but it's not really making it your own, and you don't want to do that. But stealing it, you make it your own, which they all did.
They definitely did.
Yeah.
If you look at those,
they're
completely
in
different
their
styles.
style and everything, but it's the same composition and the same images. So it's definitely worth looking up, and that a lot of people do copy other artists as source material.
Right.
Which brings us back to this topic.
Full circle.
Full circle. It's like the Lion King up in here.
Yeah. I watched that recently.
Did you?
It's a really good movie.
It's good. I cry every time.
It's really good.
But, so that brings us to our last form of source material, Kevin.
Which is, again, more in your domain.
Sorry.
But
You tell us, though.
I do try to go every now and then to live figure drawings. Live models.
Yeah.
But they are... the way I see live is more for practice.
Okay.
And the way that I use it.
All right.
Because it would help me develop my eye
and
my perspective and proportions better.
Okay.
So if I do go to a live class, it's more to just hone my skills a little more instead of actually go for source material that I'm looking for specifically.
So you see it as an opportunity to do quick sketches because you don't want the person because the limitation is obviously that you're relying on this other person to hold a pose, to have the time to be there while you draw. Exactly. They may not have 7 days to sit there with you.
And most of the time when you go to those, they're in specific poses that you don't really have the ability to dictate.
Right. And in fact, back in the day when they had uncomfortable poses, a lot of times they would create big pulley systems with ropes, and they would have these ropes that help them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, main balance. So they put their arm in a sling, and they'd sit there and be like
marionette.
Yeah, like little marionettes on ropes for hours at a time. So
wow. That must have been hellish.
You didn't have photographs back then.
And that's why those are so much better.
Right. Well, this is where Kevin and I we're gonna differ a little bit, and the reason being is because Kevin mostly does drawings that are black and white, and I work in color. So for me, when you're dealing with black and white photography, I feel like the photograph is very accurate to what you're seeing, and maybe even a little bit better. But when you're dealing with color photography, I feel like you miss so much of the information that the eye sees that the camera just can't pick up. Well, just little subtle nuances in color.
Well, the thing that I do, whenever I do color images, I use pastel. I try to simplify the colors as much as possible that I see. Because I know that they're not really represented as well. But one thing I have found is to use the computer screen.
The computer screen to what?
For the reference materials.
You're talking about you just put your images into the computer to.
Well, if I take a picture, if I get one on the internet and it's in color, I'll blow it up on the screen, and then I'll just use that and kind of simplify the colors.
Oh, just to see the detail.
Well, they get
just
the
to
detail.
simplify it.
Yeah, instead of using a photograph, it's easier.
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you. Well, we're looking at a stylistic difference here, though.
I think so. I think that's really what it's getting down
to. That's what we're talking about here. So, that's up to you. I mean, you try them all, and then you're going to pick what works for you best. But yeah, I mean, as far as when you painting, it's better, I feel like, to use a live model because not only are you going to get the subtle differences in tones, and you're going to see it with your eyes and the differences in color, but also. When painting, a little bit more so than with drawing. With drawing, your image is you're flat,
Right.
But with paint, there's a three-dimensionality to the paint itself. There's a thickness to it. So like Van Gogh. I don't know what that was. Van Gogh. Trying to talk too much. Van Gogh's paintings, obviously very, very thick, whereas another artist, very thin. I mean, his were almost like sculptures.
Right.
Yeah, and you could feel the grass because it was so thick. So you have this three-dimensionality to paint, where as you lay it on, like if I were to paint somebody's face, I wouldn't paint, somebody's face and just do horizontal strokes. I would go around and I would paint. So you're really painting that three-dimensionality, and you're moving your hand in a way that curves around the curves of the image or the person. Right. And it's really hard to do that with a two-dimensional image versus a live model where I can actually see, oh yeah, I can see you, and if I need to, I can go here versus here.
Well, that brings up actually a really good point too. Is talking a lot. What I think, I can get some water. Oh, no. I think what the distinguishing factor is for me is the higher the detail, the more precise the tool I need. Okay. And then that's when I go to the more static reference material.
I got you. So but you would use probably multiple images then in that case. You would have like up close images and far away images of the same pose.
It depends on what I'm drawing. Usually if I am going to draw something, I mean, I'll take exactly what I want. Like that picture I took of you. Right. I'll just do exactly what I want, get all the lighting down. That way I don't have to get all these different pictures and post them, put them together and all of that. It's just easier because I can throw it up on the screen, zoom in, and then I don't have to get all the smaller ones. I get you. But I think when you do live, the immediacy that is needed to do live dictates the material.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean...
Like, I would use charcoal or something that's more that
you can
cover
move
more area
quickly.
faster.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. That, or you have to have a model who's willing to come in and sit
for 10 hours.
Yeah, 3-hour sittings. Like, for example, coming soon, I've got a model coming over, and we're going to do 3-hour sittings, and she's going to sit for me for 3 hours, and as long as it takes to do this painting, which I have no idea how long it's going to take. But it's gonna be interesting. Yeah. So, and I feel like with painting particularly, I feel like that's the way to go. But with drawing, I feel like totally photography would be the better way to go.
Especially high detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, you can get really detailed with painting, but in the end, you're using more blunt tools. Yeah. To get down most of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can, I mean, obviously you would get more oil and get finer and finer. Right. But yeah, I mean, paintings are typically made to be viewed from several feet away. They're not made to be viewed from right here, where drawings a lot of times are
typically
made to be viewed.
Just because of the size.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in the mediums there. Right. So you're really picking your source material based on your medium. I think in a way, once you get down to the photography versus live model.
Yeah, I think so.
Differences. But what we have learned is that internet, good for sketching, good for just gathering general source material.
Skill builders.
Yeah, or if hey, I need a image of a bus that would have been, from this angle down the street.
Or just from different time periods.
Yeah, different time periods especially. Yeah, outfits you need, things like that. Just little details that you want to add into the painting. Internet's a great way to do all that. But as far as like piecing the entire composition together, it's possible. I've done it.
Yeah. But it's never exactly what you want.
It's not, and a lot of times, like in my case, I pieced it together off the internet and off of images, and then I ended up with perspective problems because my guy wasn't, like, I drew it, but it just wasn't, it just didn't, the perspective ended up being wrong.
It's almost like you have to take each of the source materials, find the perspective, and then draw it.
Yeah, because this guy's at a slight angle here, and this perspective's here, that's not going to work for you. You have to fix that, which I then did fix.
Even those little fine tunes just don't work out right.
And then I got it all drawn out, got it all fixed in perspective, went to paint it, and found that, well, my source material that I have is missing all of this section, and I don't know what to do there because I can't really imagine what that would look like. And so the painting is abandoned in my studio, and it's unfinished, and I hate it. Wow. So it can be a frustrating experience if you do that. It would have been much easier if I just took a picture of the landscape I wanted and just added the guy in the background.
Wow.
That would have been easier.
Is that what you were trying to do?
Well,
that seems a lot easier.
Well, that would have been easier. But what I did in this particular painting is I added the guy in. Then I went and took a picture of a '57 Chevy and added that in. And then a picture of a washing machine and added that in. And then a picture of an old house and added that in. And then a bridge being built in the background and added that. Which the bridge in the background is no big deal because background things are at a point where the perspective is,
Well, going into that, even just for a quick side note on live, is not just drawing people.
Yeah.
But just drawing like a
landscape.
Yeah. Landscape, washing machines, anything.
Oh, yeah. That, we definitely come out ahead doing live then. Yeah. Because that's not moving.
Right. Yeah. And then that's basically like a live photograph.
Yeah. You'd have to do it in plein air.
Right.
Which can be, problematic because the lighting is going to change the longer you're out there. So you'd have to get out there every day at the same time, roughly, and within the same season. But, like, artists like Messonnier, I mean, when he was doing historical paintings, he would wait until the exact same season of the period that he was doing the historic painting, go to the exact same location, see how the snow had fallen, what the sun looked like at that time of year.
That's dedication.
I mean, you can, when you get into plein air paintings, you can go to town on some dedication. And there's a rumor, side note, sorry, that Monet actually had a giant canvas that he had to dig a ditch for so that he could paint it in plein air so he can lower this enormous canvas down into this ditch. He actually dug out this like several feet deep ditch so he can lower the canvas in, paint the top, raise the canvas, paint it so it could all be in plein air, which is pretty fascinating.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you can show some real heart when you're doing plein air paintings.
That is dedication that I will probably never know.
it's a whole new level there. You got to be serious about it.
That is serious. I don't paint though.
Yeah. Well, no. but so there we go.
Yeah, there we go. I think that was. I think it was informative. I think we got a good bit of that.
I feel like it is. I feel like... Do you feel like it's informative? That's the question.
I think that was.
Shoot us an email.
Yeah. Send us info@articulatepodcast.com. Or if you have any recommendations of topics you want to hear about, topics you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Or you want to just be mentioned.
Yeah, or if you can think of a source material that we missed. I mean, we mentioned what? We mentioned internet, books,
photos,
live model.
I think that covers it.
Other artists.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can think of another source material than that, let us know.
Yeah, I don't anything else visually. I can't think of anything else. But
that's all there is. Yeah. Movies. We mentioned movies.
Too. Yeah, that was a pro tip.
That was a pro tip.
That was definitely a pro tip. I never used that before.
Yeah, it's clever.
Wow. All right. Well, if you are, if you have any questions or anything else, just go ahead. Leave them in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right over above his head.
And, if you got something you want us to talk about, let us know. Next time, we've got an interview coming up next week.
Yes, next week we have an awesome interview.
Big dude here.
Taking the podcast up.
To a whole new level, folks.
Another level.
Yeah. Tell them who it is. Don't keep them in suspense.
The Grammy Award winning.
Grammy
Award winning.
I thought that was just for music.
So did I. But
I didn't know artists could get Grammys.
Apparently not. I looked it up.
Visual artists.
They've been winning them for
years, and who knew?
Wow, what, 30, 46 years now.
There we go. This guy won one. Not this guy, but the guy he's talking about.
Rob Jones is going to be on the podcast next week. Jack White's exclusive poster artist. Lives in Austin. Took advantage of that.
Gonna be talking to us. Well, you. It's gonna be talking to you.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be awesome. So, interested in that? Stick around. If you have any questions or anything for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot us the questions, but we get those in fast.
Yes. Very fast.
Very fast, because they won't get asked if they're not.
Yes. All right.
Thanks, folks.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
You've been listening to Articulate with Kevin and Sean. Subscribe on iTunes or check them out on drawingandcoloring.com. Always reminding you to keep it simple.